Local pod.
Welcome back into TCM Pod. Spencer Mathis there in the vehicle doing a live remote, if you will. Chris Mathis here at the iHeartRadio station here in Tampa, Florida, technically Clearwater, as we talk about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and breaking news that came down the pipeline today as the Buccaneers have officially signed a big contract extension to their star safety and Antoine Winfield Jr. It's a 4-year, $80+ million deal for a guy who's worked extremely hard. And not only is a talent, not only a good player, a good person to have in the locker room as well, but a guy who shows up in the biggest of all stages and the biggest moments. This guy, some way, somehow, finds himself making a game-changing play multiple times throughout the season. We saw it in the regular season finale against Carolina. Big get here for the Buccaneers to lock this guy down and say this guy is not only our present, but our future as well, and what he could do here with the Buccaneer defense. Antoine Winfield Jr., a 4-year deal in Tampa Bay, Spence.
Yeah, most people think of Jason Light. Whenever you think of his name, you say, hey, top 5 GM in all of football, maybe even top 2, and he's not number 2, maybe number 1 in football. When I think of Jason Light, though, I think of a fast food restaurant, and the one that comes to mind is Wendy's, because this year he went 4 for 4 in terms of re-signing free agents. He did a great job. The main 4 targets, Mike Evans, Baker Mayfield, Antoine Winfield, and Levante David, were all re-signed by mid-May, which is absolutely unbelievable for the Buccaneers. And then obviously with Antoine Winfield being the highest paid safety now, I think he's the highest paid defensive back in NFL history right now. And I think he needed to be that. Obviously, he's a shorter safety, but the way that he plays the game, he's incredible. He can lock up tall wide receivers like Drake London. He can go toe-to-toe. He had 6 sacks last season, 3 interceptions. I mean, the guy was incredible. 6 forced fumbles, 120 tackles. Antoine Winfield's the best safety in football, and his contract just proved it.
And, yeah, you talk about those stats, 120 tackles, 6 sacks, 6 forced fumbles, 3 interceptions all in last year alone. That was the one player in the NFL and in NFL history to ever do that. Antoine Winfield Jr. is just different. He's a guy who comes from great pedigree. You talk about his dad, who also played in the NFL, and the success that he had. And now you've got Antoine Winfield Jr., the son, staying right here in Tampa Bay, a guy who's earned every bit of it. And the market continues to grow, and he's set the market now. So now the next safety that deserves to get paid will be higher paid than Antoine Winfield Jr. And that kind of is just the inflation of today's game. All of the talent, everything that comes with it financially. Antoine Winfield Jr., a great player for not only the Buccaneers, but for the NFL too. This is one of those players that other teams, other fan bases recognize and lock in on because he's a game changer. He's a difference maker. He's simply fun to watch. And on top of that, he's undersized too, but does not play anywhere near to his size. He's phenomenal. He's got great tackling ability. He's got a great knack to find the football. One call, that's all. That's what Antoine Winfield Jr. brings to this Buccaneer defense, and he's the catalyst of the defense. You think of Levante David, he's the staple piece of the defense, but this guy makes things work in Tampa Bay. I love the signing. I think it was phenomenal. Now it's up for Jason Light to go 5 for 5 with the $5 biggie bag and lock down with Tristan Wirfs and his future deal here in Tampa Bay, hopefully by the start of next season.
Yeah, and obviously Tristan Wirfs, another guy that the same exact draft class in 2020. And you could tell Antoine Winfield and Tristan Wirfs from the start were going to be all pro talents, which they've proven to be. I think eventual Hall of Famers, obviously, that's a huge thing to ask of a guy that's just been in his first 4 years. But Jason Light was on the Pat McAfee show just a couple of days ago, and he said, we're looking at re-signing Antoine Winfield by the end of this week. It didn't get done until Monday of the next week, but he said himself that he believes that Antoine Winfield is a Hall of Fame type talent. And with his dad's pedigree of being a very good defensive back in the NFL for years as well with the Minnesota Vikings, Antoine Winfield, 4 years in, has proven to be the best safety. And obviously, like you just said, Tristan Wirfs is the next guy to get his bag. And the Bucs may have to wait till next offseason just with how much money they've already spent this year. But, I mean, obviously, Tristan Wirfs is going to be worth it. Antoine Winfield, best safety in the league, has been paid. And the Buccaneers are going to look to go and win the NFC South for what would be the 3rd or 4th time in the last 5 years.
Would be the 4th consecutive time if they're able to win it here And Vegas has the Bucs as the second favorite to win the division. Carolina last, the Saints third, the Atlanta Falcons at number 1. I think the Falcons are a fair play if they would have used that first-round draft pick a little bit better, if it wasn't a quarterback in his mid-30s coming off a key injury. And I know that guys recover quicker nowadays from those type of injuries. However, this guy's never really had to come back from something quite like this. He's got a head coach in Raheem Morris who's been in the NFL for quite some time. He's got quite the resume, but doesn't have the success as a head coach of an NFL roster. He's been a defensive backs coach. He's been a defensive coordinator, been a wide receivers coach. Of course, talking about Raheem Morris. Now you have the question of what can the Falcons do? They just weren't a good team last year. They still gave the Buccaneers a run for their money, however. I don't think that the Bucs are a lot better than the Atlanta Falcons. But for Vegas to have the Buccaneers as underdogs to win the division baffles me, honestly. And I know the one knack on the Buccaneers is that Baker Mayfield has never, and I mean never, put back-to-back really good seasons, much less great seasons together. And he's going to have to do that. He set the bar so high last year. And truly, the only expectation and the only high expectations were from himself and his coaches and the players too. Now the entire NFL expects more from Baker Mayfield and know what he's capable of if all things go according to plan. So he does have a target on his back, but I do think the Buccaneers are being a bit disrespected here, right now, heading into this upcoming season. And a season in which we find out the official schedule on Wednesday night, and you guys are able to watch that. We're able to watch that here as we get things rolling with the reveal of the schedule. A couple of games have been announced as of today, but the full schedule, the times, what team is playing when and where, that is going to be fun. We can find that out on Wednesday. NFL Network will have that NFL schedule release show at 8 o'clock. CBS Sports will also break down the schedule release too, and you can stream that on Paramount Plus. So, Spence, if you can get your hands on streaming, how big of a deal is the schedule release to you? Are you just going to keep up with it on social media, or will you be watching this live stream trying to find out who the Bucs are playing, some of the biggest games in the NFL in 2024?
Yeah, I'm going to do what I did in the last couple of years, which is watching the Twitter videos that the NFL teams post. The last year, the Chargers were the best social media team in the league. They made their entire schedule release an anime thing. So they correlated each game to a certain type of anime. I think it had to have gotten at least 100,000 retweets on Twitter from last year, and that one was the best. I like to keep up with that. Last year, I think the Buccaneers kind of failed in that department with their schedule announcement. I don't think they did a very good job, but I think that's going to be a thing that's going to continue to get top year in and year out. And I don't think there's going to be that many people watching the entire NFL Network stream. I don't think there's really a point anymore with social media as X being the main thing or the main catalyst to post.
Right. Yeah, no doubt about it. It's been frustrating that you have to keep up with it that way. And social media is such a big thing now with all sports teams. And you said the Bucs kind of missed the mark last year in that regard. This year they got to rebound. They got to do a little bit better. And hopefully they will. But either way, I don't care about favorites when it comes to the schedule release. I want to keep up with the biggest games. I want to see the biggest and best creativity involved with all the schedule release videos. The Chargers were amazing last year. The Buccaneers did, they were okay. A couple of other teams had some phenomenal release dates. But there have been some games already unveiled, Spence, as far as we kicking off the 2024 season. The Ravens and Chiefs will go at it Thursday Night Football to kick off 2024. It's Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City against Baltimore's Lamar Jackson. Should be a really good matchup there. I'm excited for this. I don't know if this is the matchup I was dreaming of. However, it will be a good one. As we all know, this was the very big AFC title game last year, the matchup in which the Chiefs squeaked one out against Baltimore 17-10. I had Baltimore winning it all, and the Chiefs knocked them out in the AFC title. So how do you feel about this opener to start off the 2024 season? It's Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, the first drive of that AFC championship last year, Lamar Jackson was scrambling around, had a 40-yard touchdown pass after breaking a couple of sacks to Zay Flowers. And then right after that, the game just died down. I thought it was going to be one of those AFC championship games where it's one of the most generational games that you've ever seen. And instead, it was kind of a letdown. It was a defensive matchup. It was a great game, though. I mean, you can't really hate whenever there's a defensively dominated game. The one game that always comes to mind for me that a lot of people didn't like was the Super Bowl between the Rams and Patriots. I think the Patriots only won by just over 9 points in that game. I think it was like 9 or 10 point victory, 13-3 win. But that's one of the most entertaining Super Bowls, just to watch Bill Belichick kind of be the main star in that game with how good of a defensive performance they put up against what was the best offense. And I think it was 2018 or 2017 with the LA Rams. So defensive games are great, but I'm hoping for the first game of the season, it's going to be a lot less tight. We're going to see a lot of balls deep downfield. Obviously, the Chiefs have got a lot of new talent. That first round pick they made, Xavier Worthy, is super quick. I think they also signed Marquise Hollywood Brown. They got him from the Ravens, so that'll be a thing to watch out for as well, because he was just on the Ravens last season. So should be one of the best, most entertaining opening day games that we've seen in a while. I can't remember what last year's was, but I know that it was kind of it wasn't as great as what we had expected heading into that game. But I'm gonna go with I'm gonna think it's gonna be a very good game between those two teams, and I think we're gonna see Patrick Mahomes. We're gonna see if they really do win a three-peat heading into next year.
Yeah, he's doubled down on the three-peat talk. Patrick Mahomes has already said, we're going to do it. We're going to be the first team to do so. Not only is he confident in that, he's a little bit cocky with that too. And you can be if you're as good as he is. However, history shows that that's probably not going to happen. As of right here, right now, though, if they can stay healthy and Xavier Worthy does what we think he's capable of doing, I think the Chiefs can run it back. The defense is good. They did lose Ladarius Sneed, which is a big loss. However, this team knows what it takes to win. They know when to put the pedal to the metal. They know what to expect in Baltimore, and it should be a really good Week 1 season opener here on Thursday Night Football. Now, we also have our second official, as of today, the recording of this podcast, our next matchup. It's the home opener on Sunday between the Dallas Cowboys and the Cleveland Browns. It's at the Brown Stadium there in Cleveland, 4:25 kickoff. The big news with this, it's the first Fox broadcast of the year, and Tom Brady will make his debut on that broadcast. I love Tom Brady. I love him as an athlete. I love him as a motivational speaker. I love him for the fact he's the greatest football player in history. Nobody will ever top him, I don't believe. But also, I love that he can relate to those that were doubted. However, I don't know if I'm going to be a big believer that he's going to be a phenomenal broadcaster. His tone of voice, the inflection in the voice, isn't quite there unless he's giving a motivational speech or he's in the huddle or on the sidelines. Then you feel it. But when he's just having a traditional conversation, I just don't see that. I don't know if his knowledge and his experience is going to keep me entertained if his inflection of his voice and the tone and his energy, his passion don't quite align. And that's no shot to him. I don't think everybody's meant to be a broadcaster. But for me, a diehard, and I'm wearing the Brady brand right here, guy of Tom Brady and his success in not only the NFL, but also life, I don't know if it's going to be that great. I got to see it first.
Yeah, I think it's going to come down to, is he the play-by-play guy or is he the color commentator whenever the season rolls around? Do you know if he's – I would assume he's the color commentator. And Tony Romo, whenever he made his debut, was a huge hit with all the NFL fans. People have kind of grown to hate him as we've gone on in his span of being an NFL announcer. But I think Tom Brady's going to be incredible at it, especially whenever it comes down to quarterback play. He knows it better than anybody. We were putting Tony Romo up on the pedestal. Think of him breaking down an interception thrown by Patrick Mahomes, who's the second greatest quarterback of all time at this current moment. He's only been in the league for 6 to 7 years. He's a guy that may top Tom Brady's career. So it's going to be interesting how he talks about Patrick Mahomes whenever we get into a Chiefs game that he gets to do. I mean, I obviously know they had a ton of respect for each other. Patrick Mahomes was completely owned by Tom Brady throughout his career, which is always going to be the leg up that Tom Brady holds. I think it's just going to be a ton of fun to hear Tom Brady, the actual GOAT, go out there and commentate whenever we have a guy and Tony Romo, who I don't think they ever made it to the NFC Championship game. So Brady's going to be the best color commentator, or at least the most CTV color commentator of the 2024 NFL season. If I had to place money on it, I'm going to say his broadcasts are going to be the most watched out of any of the broadcasters that we have out there, even the ones that people love to hear, the energetic voices. I do think that Brady doesn't have the most energetic voice. He doesn't have the deepest voice either. So it's kind of like a mix of, if he's not fully passionate, like you were saying, with like the pregame speeches, postgame speeches, it's not going to be completely like must-see TV, but just him breaking down types of quarterback plays is going to be all over Twitter, all over every social media, and it's going to get tons of clicks, tons of views, and people I think are going to grow to love Tom Brady even more than whenever he was on the Buccaneers during his last 3 or 4 seasons in the NFL.
Wow. I mean, you talk about kind of the national media and people around the world, not just here in the United States, but around the world globally, that now are fans of Tom Brady because of Tampa Tom. We got a different viewpoint of Tom Brady. We saw a guy who let loose, had fun, had a sense of humor with the videos with Gronkowski, with his time with Tampa Bay, but also during the Super Bowl parade had, what was it, an avocado, some kind of drink, and he was drunk and wasted off 1 or 2 drinks. And we just saw a different lighthearted Tom Brady here in Tampa Bay. And people grew to love him, and people got to see a different side of him. So to think that he might even get more out there and be more personable with the football fans, with the audience, that's going to be something to watch for. And it excites me too, because you're going to hear probably some stories from Tom Brady that have never been told in different situations that he's never really elaborated on. Because Tom Brady, after a game, I've gotten to interview Tom Brady a time or two, ask him a couple of questions at a post-game press conference. He's right to the point, but doesn't give you too much to where you could sit there and really analyze. He just answers your question next one. He's not going to give you anything juicy that you sit there, I wonder what he's referring to. I think now we might see some more stories come about, good or bad, maybe that he might not want to share, but it just happens to slip out.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be absolutely great. Obviously, he's not gonna be worth all the money that they're paying him, which is absolutely insane. And that's the big thing that's probably keeping him inside of retirement in terms of playing football. But it's gonna come down to if the Raiders want to give him the call. And let's see if maybe Brady will be strapping up for the black and white Raiders come October, or November, or even September of next year. Maybe if somebody goes down, is he still available as the season progresses?
Well, it's something to watch out for, and I kind of have been beating that drum for a while now, Spence, until about a month and a half ago, and I thought, you know what, it's over. I don't think he's going to do this. So if you're now streaming us on YouTube or Spotify, yes, even you guys right here, right now that click play and are listening on Spotify, you can actually watch it. Unless you drive, you can watch this podcast. We've got the Buccaneers opponents right up on the video board right here, right now, and want to talk about the number of games that the Buccaneers might have here that are not at 1 o'clock, Spence. First and foremost, you've got here are the home games that stand out to me. You've got the Eagles at home. You've got the Falcons at home. You've got the Niners at home. You've got the Ravens at home. That's 4 pretty big games, in my opinion, right there. And one of the Falcons games, whether it be the home or the away game, is going to be big, in my opinion. Then you've got Dallas. You've got the Chiefs. You've got the Chargers. You've got the Lions all on the road. The Chargers game, with it being West Coast, is not going to be a 1 o'clock kickoff. So that's one game that'll be about 4:05, 4:25, whatever the case may be. And then the rest is free range. How many of these games do you think the Buccaneers will have aside from a 1 o'clock kickoff here this year?
How many what games?
How many games do you think the Bucs will have that are not getting underway at 1 o'clock?
With the away games, I think the Chiefs game is going to be a 4 o'clock kickoff. Chargers definitely a 4 o'clock kickoff. I think if one of those NFC South games are at the end of the year, one of those are going to be pushed back to 4. Especially if this could be the year where the Buccaneers play the Falcons again on the last day of the NFL season, of the regular season. So that would be a 4 o'clock game. So I'm going to say 3 of the away games are going to be 4 o'clock or later. And then with the home games, I think the Eagles is going to be a night game. I think the Raiders will be a little bit later as well because they're kind of used to the 4 o'clocks. I think the 49ers and Ravens will also be 4 o'clock or later. So I'm going to book it as the Bucs have 7 4 p.m. starts or later during the 2024 season.
Wow.
Could all be around 1 p.m. But even the Dallas Cowboys game that's away could also be a primetime game.
Yeah, that's a lot. And it sounds crazy. The Buccaneers have won 3 consecutive NFC South titles. You look at these matchups, we've already seen them play Dallas before in prime time a couple of times. The Chargers game will naturally be after 1 o'clock. Detroit, that's my sleeper for the Sunday night game, week 1. That's my sleeper. It's in Detroit. It's the playoff matchup we just saw. I think they could also go with the Lions against 49ers in that game, week 1. However, my sleeper pick and hot take is Detroit against Tampa Bay and Detroit week 1 Sunday night football. That would be something to watch out for. Carlton Davis, former Buccaneer, now plays for the Lions. Lions have a really good team. Oh, yeah, they just signed Jared Goff to a 4-year, $210 million contract. So, what was that?
That's great for the Lions right there.
Yeah, I think it's a 4. I think there's at least 4 games that are after 1 o'clock this year. I could see anywhere from 4 to 6. I think 7's pushing it. I don't know if the Bucs are going to get that much love, but they might. I mean, they might. They're consistent, and they're one of the better teams in the NFC. So if you're trying to find an NFC team, the Buccaneers definitely fit that mold for any of these programs or telecasts that are trying to air some football on Sundays, Thursdays, and Mondays.
Yeah, I'm gonna stick with 7 4 p.m. starts. I'm gonna give the Buccaneers during the 2024 season 3 primetime games and maybe 1 more flex at the end of the year.
Wow. All right, guys, you heard it there first. I'm gonna go with the happy medium. I'll say 5 games are not at 1 o'clock. They're after 1 o'clock. Should be a lot of fun to see this all shake out. Again, you guys can watch the schedule release on Wednesday, 8 o'clock, I believe. Also, be very aware and wary of what you see on social media on Wednesday with all the leaks, because there's got to be a lot of pranksters and fake accounts out there. So you need to check not just blue checks anymore, because anybody, even I could buy a blue check mark these days, but you got to check the account, make sure they're a worthy source, or else you will get got.
Yeah, don't get scammed.
Do not. Yeah, we don't want to lose any money out there. So, as always, thank you guys for checking out the podcast. We will be back with you guys next week following the schedule release. We'll come at you with some big matchups that we're looking forward to across the National Football League, some of the weakest matchups, and much more, all right here on TCM Pod.